So today especially, like with the weather the way that it is, it's like the advent of spring. So you're on a machine with springs. So now those springs are coils. So most of the time, this equipment, is perceived as the springs are a form of resistance. But you can change that into feeling that the springs are a form of information and sensory feedback or support. So you can unwind yourself like that spring is doing. So think about the spring. When you send the carriage out, that spring is actually uncoiling, but it's stronger within its uncoiling than it is when it's coiled up. So that's why I want to get across to you that if you want to get stronger, it's not separating the fact that when you release these quads and the femur deepens and spins in, that's not just a release of overwork or tightness. Within this unwinding, you're stronger, just like the spring going out unwinds, the coils unwind, but that's where the strength is, the space between the coils. Good. And then, there you go. So now you can bend, and just like the spring, the coils are coming a little bit closer together, but it still has a strength to it. That's it. So imagine that you're this set of springs. Your Achilles tendons are little spring-loaded mechanisms. You've got this shock absorber-like spring in your femur-to-hip relationship. Good. Anything paired is going to relate to something central, so your two heels with a talon-like energy off your heels can help you to unfurl your tail. There you go. Good. Because your heels relate to your tail, so what's right above the heels, which is these Achilles, these springy Achilles, that would relate to what's right above your tail. Does that make sense? So it's like you've got heels and tail. So this is kind of like the distal point of your foot, and your tail, what you're learning is that it's the distal point of your lower spine. So distal means kind of furthest from.
Okay.
So it's like your fingertips would be distal, the crown of your head would be distal, this would be distal. So the heels are distal and the tail is distal. There you go. So then what's right above the heel, which is these springy Achilles, would relate to what's right above the tail, which is your sacrum. So feel that you have these little tiny springs in your Achilles that relate to a bigger central spring in your sacrum. There you go. Good. And then as we mentioned before, you change the perception of not having this frontal rib cage, which is shoved forward in either protection. So think of what a cage does. It either protects something that's in it, like a bird in a cage is protecting the bird, but it's also keeping its entrapment or incarceration. So you don't need that. So instead of thinking as having a frontal rib cage that's protective or in a projection, instead feel like you have a coil of ribs on each side. So these ribs can uncoil and be informed by the springs. There you go. So you don't have, your ribs are not a cage, they're more like a set of springs on either side of your spine. Good. And so we're just going to bounce you. Good. And then come in, and you can continue to find that slight bounce. So I can feel in my hand behind your back. Good. Which is, muscularly, it's like these are your lats, your lower trapezius. I have my hand under that. I can feel that they're releasing and unwinding. And it's just the same kind of thing. This, when it releases and unwinds, it's stronger than if it's held up. Good. or holding back. So think about that phrase, holding back. If you're holding in your back, you're holding back.